Hello, good morning. This is Gregor Wolf broadcasting into the SAP online track today with my session Getting Started with CAP for ABAPers. Hello and welcome, everybody. So let's hope everything technically works out and we can start into the topic. I'm still trying to watch also here the YouTube streaming. Yeah, it started. Good. Let's give it a go. So yeah, I've handed in the session quite late. If you don't know me, I'm Gregor Wolf. On Twitter, you find me at Wolf_Gregor. I'm this guy here, SAP mentor and independent SAP consultant. That's the desk where I'm sitting with this nice biodynamic German-made microphone. And yeah, let's give it a go and dig into CAP. No more introduction. So with CAP, the so-called Cloud Application Programming Model by SAP, you can really focus on business requirements that need to be solved. And now let's compare it with your classic ABAP environment if you're coming from that perspective. And so in ABAP, and now we have CAP. So in ABAP, you have like SE80. So the SE80 for CAP is the environment where you can directly start without doing any configuration is the Business Application Studio. In short, sometimes it's used BAS. So when you want then to create your data definitions, you do that in ABAP in SE11. Here in CAP, you use CDS. So, but don't mix it up directly with CDS you know from ABAP. It's a kind of little bit different dialect. And here you will also do data definitions. And then for providing your service to the outside world in ABAP, if you want to create a OData service, you use the transaction SCGW. And here in CAP, it's again a file which you write in CAP. Of course, there is not only the simple create, read, update, delete processes. Sometimes you need custom logic. And for custom logic, in ABAP, of course, you write ABAP code in classes that you then starting to implement from your OData service. Here in CAP, you have Java or JavaScript because there are two flavors of CAP. One is the Java flavor and the other is the JavaScript flavor. And I will focus on the JavaScript flavor today. To really provide your service to the outside world or make it accessible, there is in ABAP also one step to do that. That is a transaction called IWFND main_service. That is a transaction where you start or where you expose your service to the outside world. In CAP, there is a command line if you want to try it out, but that is actually also run in the actual production environment. CDS watch is the command for development, but then there is CDS run for production environments. The application server in ABAP, you know, our beloved SAP NetWeaver ABAP stack, then NetWeaver AS ABAP. And here in CAP, we use either a Java runtime or a Node.js runtime. For databases, you know, ABAP is running on like AnyDB. AnyDB means the SAP supported databases, which unfortunately isn't true in the future because SAP focuses on HANA. And also here in CAP, in the moment, it's for local development, you have an SQLite database. And if you go for production, you have an HANA database. Luckily, there are developments to broaden the scope and support also other databases that would broaden the possible runtimes for CAP. Good, let's go into some coding after this introduction and comparison. But first, our business case. Yeah, you know, the corona is around the world, and there are regulations that you have, for example, to register everyone visiting you. So we have like a customer experience center, and say asked us to register our visitors and track when they entered our center and when they left. And we want to build that up in CAP. Good, let's go. And your entry point to CAP, we will use the Business Application Studio, and everyone can try this for free. Just go to hanatrial.ondemand.com and you will be forwarded to this page where you can enter your trial account. If you don't have yet an SAP user, then simply register one and you have to go. Unfortunately, this account lasts always 30 days. You can renew it 2 times. And after 90 days, it will be deleted, but you can immediately create a new one afterwards. So don't care. Store your code in some Git repository. As GitHub now even have private repositories, should be really just easy. And then you are always able to make it running again very quickly. What you will learn is like DevOps, because you try to automate everything to don't lose anything which you created. Good, let's go into the trial and find where the Business Application Studio is. You find it in the subscriptions, and there is the Business Application Studio. So let's go to this application. And as it takes a little bit of time to create such a so-called dev space, I've already created it and started it up. And it started up here, and it's a completely empty Business Application Studio dev space. And now let's try to create our new application from a template. And the only template, because I've chosen the development environment for CAP, is a CAP project. And let's choose that and go the next step. And we have to enter a project name, and I will call it Visitor Registration. We have to specify what features we want to have in our project, and I go directly for the MTA and pipeline. I will not choose the Java because I want to do the JavaScript. And for the moment, I don't have HANA inside because I want to do first local development, try it out, and deploy later. Good. And it's now creating this project. And let's open this new workspace. And we should see an empty project, and with its default structure, as it's coming when you're working with a CAP application. You have a folder for app, which will contain the UI parts. There is a DB folder, which contains our data definition for the database, but also then it could contain also artifacts of HANA. And then there is a SRV part, which is like your service layer, where we define the OData service and also then the custom implementations. There are a lot of other files here. One is very important, our package.json, because this defines what dependency our project has. And one step one thing you really should get used to is to use a terminal. Because the cloud, you want to automate everything. And when you have a terminal and when you have commands, everything what you type here, that can be automated. Clicks on an UI can't be automated. So let's do first of all, the most important thing, if you work with a Node.js project and you have a package.json, do an npm install, because that will read the package.json and will install all the dependencies we see here. On one hand side, it's SAP CDS, which is the base package of the Cloud Platform Application Programming Model, or the Cloud Application Programming Model. And Express is like your web server. It's the SICF, or the ICF, the Internet Communication Framework of Node.js. Good. Now we've installed something, and we can run. We can run when it's not frozen. Let me restart the Business Application Studio again, because my terminal just froze. And let's hope I don't need my backup, but seems it's working now. Okay, CDS watch. Perhaps I leave the YouTube stream, so perhaps I have more bandwidth than for me. Watch. And let's go. Good. So now we've started our CDS and it's waiting for models. Okay, we haven't defined anything here in the DB folder. Let's create a new file and let's call it schema.cds. So that's our first file. In the moment, yeah, nothing in here. So let's create one thing. And the first thing we want to create is a so-called entity. And entity represents also here if we define them in the schema, say defines then our database artifacts. And let's call it visitors. And you see there is something here directly suggested, a so-called CUID, but it has a problem that it's not found. What does it mean? The cloud application programming model comes with some predefined artifacts which you can reuse. And to reuse them, I type in the using keyword, and it suggests me, yeah, use perhaps SAP CDS common. And this is like a central library with some predefinitions, which I can use now. And here I can define what I want to use. And you see there is a suggestion for the CUID. So now we fix this issue. And what is CUID actually? Let's go here. There is a go to definition. Like in ABAP, you can do forward navigation, and you see it defines an abstract entity called CUID, which defines a key called ID, which is from type UUID. So I will get a global unique identifier as my ID field. Good, let's use that. And now we can start defining our actual business data. So we want to have a first name, which is a string of a specific length. I will make it like ABAP compatible. Could be, I think it's 60 characters in ABAP. And we have a last name. Also make it a string. And make it also 60. And we want to have a phone number, which is I define also as a string. I think ABAP uses 30, and an email address, which we define as a string 250. Okay, so that's our data definition. And what we see now, it's already now doing something. No complaints about the model, but there is no complaint about a service definition. Good, we have defined our database layer, and we can go now to our service part. Can you please mute your microphone for the moment? Good, and let's go to a new file, and let's call this the registration-service.cds. So that should be the service which is used by the end user application, which will be public. And we give it that name. And let's define here a service. And let's call it registration service. And here we want to use something which is defined in the schema. To do that, we have to include the schema here in our service. To better distinguish between our service, our database layer and the service layer, I will add here also a namespace to have better distinguish. So let's make this namespace DB. And now we say using, and we use not from the common, but we are going to use something which is defined in a folder just above. And you see, it's already suggesting that is my schema. And now we can say we want to include the DB, because that makes it more clearer when we now define here now an entity as a so-called projection. We want to have our visitors as a projection on the DB entity visitors. So it takes now everything which is defined in the schema is now exposed to the service visitors. And now you see there is no warning messages anymore, but I get here a message that now a service is listening on some port, and I can expose and open to access the service. Okay, let's do that. Expose and open. And you see there is now a new tab was opened, and we went from creating like our database layer and definition to our service layer. So compare it to SEGW. And now with this click, we already exposed the service and it's accessible to be tested. And we see some nice website which shows us like, yes, this is a path to the service registration. There is also some metadata. If you know OData, you see there is this is the OData metadata, and what you actually see there is OData version 4. Be careful with that, because you're normally used to OData v2 if you work in the ABAP environment. And do we have some data? No, we don't. And you see there is also a link to Fiori, but that's another story. Let's get some data now into our service. So to complete the examples that we have created a service which can be used. But as this service will be public, I will do one really important annotation here. And that is, I want to make the service to be only insertable. So all the visitors can insert their information, but they cannot read anything from it. So let's see if that had an effect. So when I now go to the visitor entity, you see already now method is not allowed. So the simple get to read data from the service is not available anymore. So let's create then also a service which is used from the backend user. Let's create admin service.cds. And in this admin service, we perhaps, let's make it easy. Let's copy a bit from here, but let's call it admin service. And this admin service, that will be not insert only, it will also be readable. So let's give it a try if something changed here. So now we have two services. One is for the admin, one is for the registration, and here the get is allowed. And to finish with my demo part, let's create a new folder here on top, which I call test, because I want to show the application without an UI. And I use a tool which is already also part of the Business Application Studio, which is the REST client. And let's create a new file where we are the visitor registration.http. So if your file is named .http, you can put in here like HTTP requests. And the HTTP request I want to create in here is the create visitor. And to make it easy, I copy the parse at least to the service, and it's running on Yeah, actually it's running somewhere in the cloud, but for the cloud, it's local, or for this environment, it's localhost on port 4004, as you see down here. And as we want to do a create, we send a post, and we have to do this with the content type, which is the easiest here, is application/JSON. And now we have to fill in some data to don't disturb you or annoy you with me typing. I've prepared that. So it should be the correct names: first name, last name, phone number. Let's double check in the schema. Yeah, phone number and email address. Good. So that should be fine. And let's send a test request. Hopefully. Okay. Get address info. But if you type localhost correctly, it should then work. Let's copy that again and send the request. And we got a response, 201 created. And you see here, that's the Express web server. And we created this data with this, and we got this ID. And let's see if we go to the admin UI, or not UI, but if you go to the admin endpoint, if we can read this data, we can read this data. Okay, so that's for this short introduction and demo. And if you are interested in more, I will post this link somewhere. I think I share just the document, make it public readable, and then you can go on from there. Make it to open this link. Yeah, let's do that. Restricted only people can. Yeah, I will get. We will find out. And yeah, if you have any questions, please get them in.
Hi, Gregor.
Yeah.
I think we have an interesting question from one of the audience. That's regarding how to handle create or update operations for unstructured data like images and PDF files, like binary.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one. And the nice one is that this question is also answered in the official CAP documentation. So there is something like, let's call it, it's let's see if I find it that way. No, not really. It's somewhere in consuming providing service. What how is the OData endpoint called when you do with binary data? Let's see. Working with data type binary. See. No. I'm even a better one. There is there is a repository on GitHub, which is cloud-cup-samples. And this repository contains a lot of sample code. And there is one sample called media. And this sample shows how to handle binary data. So if you want to upload files. And the data definition for that is you have to define one field as a field which contains the actual data. And there is another field which contains the media type. So that is like the MIME type of the file. And with this data definition, you then can serve the data like that. It's what you've just seen in my example. And here it is handled with this implementation. But there is also, so that is the way. And let's see if we find media in the documentation. here we go. Media and serving media data. So here you find all the details for this topic. Is there any other question?
Yeah, Gregor, I think we have another question. Couple of them. Is it mandatory to learn JavaScript and Node.js to write program in CAP? That's question one. Bundled with another one is, in ECC, we can develop ALV report program. In CAP, how to achieve these reports?
Okay. So yes, you have to learn either Java or JavaScript because if you want to implement business logic, and I haven't shown that yet, you need to know that. And the good thing is there's a lot of resources out there. Just go on YouTube or whatever fits best your learning needs and learn it. So it's mandatory because business logic is done in that. And for the second question, can you repeat again?
Yeah, that's in ECC, we can develop ALV report program. In CAP, how to achieve these reports?
Yeah. Okay, that's a good one because so let's take my examples that I've prepared. We had not the time yet to fill in how to get an UI, but here for this service I prepared that. So what you need to do is to get like an ALV report, which is the new one, which that is I would call Fiori Elements the ALV grid of the future. And you see, I have to do like so-called annotations. And I annotate for my admin service, I annotate the entity visitors with so-called UI annotations here. And you see that I define here a selection field, which says the first name and last name should be able, I can search in this for the first name and last name. Then the line items, they define the columns of my table. And then here's this header info and facets. They define the layout of my actual detail page. So when I get a list, a result, and then I click on one of the entries, and then this is then for the definition how to show the details. And let's start also this application. I go into the visitor registrations and do the same CDS watch also here. So it now, even in this case, also deployed some data from a CSV file that I've defined. So we can directly see some data here. And now let's go and check that we have some data here in the database. Yes. And now we can click on this Fiori link. And if I do that, it will open up a Fiori Elements application. And we see exactly that the first name, last name are visible here as separate columns. So I can put in, let's try it directly with that. So I can do a search for some new entry, and even you also get by default, you get a full text search about all your columns. So you not even have, let's put in the example because that is in the email address. Okay, I find it. And when I write it wrong, let's see if I don't get any results. Yeah, so it's working. And yeah, now we can go into, oops, not now, the search wasn't working. Good, let's go into the details, and you see that is the detail page based on this definitions. These definitions are like translated into OData metadata annotations, and you see them here generated in our metadata file. Hope that answers the question.
Okay. So we got another question. If you would like to take it, Gregor.
Yeah, if it's time-wise, it's okay.
Yeah, I think we have time.
Yeah.
How
Okay.
does the S4HANA custom extension can be handled with CAP?
Also a very nice one. And here I especially would recommend to watch the week 4 of the OpenSAP course on CAP, which is also in the links. And there is then also one cookbook, and that is on consuming services, because that describes how you can take a service and call it. And and even better, there is one in the Grow as you go section. There is our one mocking app services, because that is very interesting. If you have an existing OData service from your S4 system, then you can create a mock server for it that allows you to like replicate or have some data locally for your testing. So you don't always need access to the backend system. And then you can go from there. And it's demonstrated with like the business partner service. And you go from there, run it local, but then even be able also to call your backend and work from there. Another interesting part is using events, because S4HANA Cloud and also S4HANA On-Premise since 1809 allows sending events, and you can like get a change event for a sales order and process that in CAP. And the integration part for that is enterprise messaging, which is a service on the cloud platform. Good. If you want and we have time, we can take another one.
Okay, I think this would be the last one, maybe. Let's say an ABAP developer without Node.js and Java experience. Which runtime would you suggest to developer to learn first?
Yeah, for me, as also an ex or still active ABAPer, it was always Node.js was more appealing to me. It feels like faster there. But if you liked also the typed environment, which is also now coming for the Node.js environment, because in the community they started a project on TypeScript for CAP. So yeah, take whatever you feel best with. So try both and find your way.
Okay, great. I think, yeah, I think one last question I might sneak in.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. How to debug
No
and
worries.
test practice during runtime dynamic data?
Okay, how to debug? Can you repeat
Yeah,
again?
how to debug and test services with runtime dynamic data.
With runtime dynamic data. Yeah, so your data really should fit to the schemas you define. So it's there are ways to work with that. But I haven't tried. I've worked with predefined structures for the moment. But debugging is possible. But unfortunately, as I don't have like a custom code implementation here, I can't show it here. But you see, here's this debug icon, and you can then create a debug configuration, and it will allow you to set breakpoints in the custom code, and you have a real-time debugging. It's really enjoyable. And if you want to even go one step further, you can switch then from the business application studio like to local development with Visual Studio Code. And what I do for my production projects, I have then a local HANA database, which is a database only, and then I can do full flight mode development. I get everything which I need and can run my projects completely local.
Great, Gregor. I think
Yeah,
we are towards the close of the Q&A. That was
yeah,
the last one. Thank you so
excellent.
much. Appreciate it.
Mhm.
We will run the raffle and just
Mhm.
pick a winner, and hopefully the person would be happy to hear his name
Yeah,
or her name.
and if you want to donate, then simply go to the SAP Online Tracks donation page. But check out the members. I've registered here as a member, and if you donate via this, I will double the amount.
That's a great message. So just wait for me to share my screen and
Yep.
show the spinning wheel.
Good. I have to unshare my screen. Yep. Okay. Stop streaming.
Okay, so these are the participants we had today who would be.
Okay, excellent. Quite a number.
Yeah, sure. I mean, your session has been really interesting. I think it kept many of them interested. A lot of interesting questions too.
Mhm.
Shuffle them up a couple of times.
Okay,
And
nice.
then
And then click to spin. Zoop.
make it interesting.
And
That's Sachin.
you know him?
Congratulations, Sachin.
Congratulations. Excellent.
Okay, Gregor,
So
over to you for any last closing statements, please.
I can only highly recommend get starting with it. Have a look. All the resources are free to get started with, and especially have a look at the OpenSAP course. It seems that they're coming up with like safe paced training where you still also can get a certificate. And yeah, that's for me quite new world in the cloud platform, cloud application programming model for ABAPers. So see
Great.
you and have a great remaining day for the SAP Online Track.
Thanks a lot, Gregor.